Sounds like Europe. Cross-border podcasting.
Hello and welcome to Sounds Like Europe, Cross-Border Podcasting, a project brought to you by WePod. I am your host, Javi Caminero. I think we can already consider it a tradition to talk in this podcast about WePod's documentaries every time they are released. On the 18th of April, we published the first episode of The Drying Plane, a co-production made by Press Freedom Foundation, WePod's Serbian partner, and Qubit, WePod's Hungarian partner. It is the last medium-sized co-production of the project after Sea of Rage, Truck Drivers, and A Grain of Power. With medium-sized co-production, we are referring to these co-productions done by two of the partners of the WePod project. In this documentary, the Serbian and Hungarian partners focus on a global issue that affects us from different points of view, and that's climate change. The Panonian Basin spreads mostly through Hungary and Serbia, and they have focused on some of the problems that affect this area due to climate change. These are problems, for example, that have consequences on drinking water, as you can imagine, for example, water pollution, or problems that can also generate different challenges in agriculture. But to go deeper into this issue and to understand how our colleagues have made this documentary, today I'm joined by Mina Delic, a journalist from Press Freedom Foundation. Hello, Mina, how are you?
Hello, Javier. I'm fine. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you for being here. First of all, Mina, tell me about yourself. I want to know what's your story and what's your relationship with podcasting?
Okay, so I will say a little bit about myself personally and then a little bit about Press Freedom Foundation. So I am a freelance journalist and documentary photographer in Serbia, and I live in a small town, Senta, in northern part of Serbia. And this is how I connected with Press Freedom Foundation, because they are, they have their main office in my hometown. Press Freedom Foundation is a media group in Serbia for Hungarian national minority, mostly, covering Vojvodina province, yes. And what is important to say that we are the only independent Hungarian media in Serbia, in the meaning of not being part of the regime propaganda media. Yeah, so this is about this. Regarding podcasting, Press Freedom Foundation did some podcasts before, but this is our first international collaboration, and it is, if I might add, challenging.
Yeah, for sure. And how have you been? Yes. How have you been dealing with the process? You being a photographer and
yes,
and all of a sudden doing a documentary with partners from all over Europe.
Yes.
How has it been?
Suddenly, it's not visual. Without visual, I'm blind. But, okay, I do have some basics because I was studying journalism. So I have basics in everything. Photography, written articles, television, radio. But podcasting is a bit different. But now I started actually seeing through sounds. It's very interesting. So I am not a visual, but still I do have a lot of images in my head only by listening to sounds. It's truly amazing. Like something new for me, new experience.
Yeah, and for those who don't know about the Panonian Basin, try to explain to the audience what is it exactly, where is it?
Well, Panonian Basin is it's situated in southeastern Europe, and it's basically the old Panonian seabed. So in the past, here it was sea, but now it remained the plain. Plain itself refers to the lowland parts of the Panonian Basin, and this is what we are talking about in our podcast, which is titled The Drying Plane. Panonian Basin is, it spreads mostly in Hungary, but it also has parts of it in other countries, like, for example, northern Serbia. It's very important to mention that Hungary and Serbia share common history, because Vojvodina province, where we live, it's in northern part of Serbia, it belonged in the past to southern Hungary and was part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Well, that's why we do have Hungarians here in Serbia, and because it was previously a part of Hungary.
So with all this context in mind, I think you can confirm it or not, but I think it was maybe easy for you guys to decide on going through and working on this topic. But why did you decide to make a documentary about the impact of climate change there in the Panonian Basin, and not only the Panonian Basin as a topic itself?
Climate change is very visible in Panonian Basin, like in Panonian Plain concretely. In the past, we had normal winters, like cold winters. We had warm summers, but everything was like more or less, I would say, normal. And now everything is more extreme regarding the heat, the drought, but we are lacking normal winters, like with snow cover for already like, I don't know, like minimum 5 years and even 10 years. We don't have that classical winter with snow cover, which is actually very bad for agriculture. It damages the crops. So we do feel the impact of climate change. That's why we actually decided to have this as our topic, and our Hungarian partners agreed like instantly. There was no question about other topic, because this topic is very, very important for both sides, Hungarian and Serbian.
And why could this podcast be also interesting for listeners from all over Europe? I mean, climate change, obviously, and unfortunately is present in
it's the thing.
everywhere. Yeah, and for example, you were talking about how you don't have your classic winters there anymore. Well, here in Spain, for example, we have had this crazy March where it has been raining the whole month, and that usually doesn't happen. And the same goes for the summer, where you are in July and August, and you cannot even sleep because of the heat in the middle of the night. So those are consequences of climate change. But going to your podcast, which is the main thing today, why could it be interesting for listeners from all over Europe?
Okay, it might be interesting, first of all, because geographically it is in Europe. So we are here. Hello. So it's directly connected to Europe geographically. Panonian Basin has 3 major rivers. Danube flows through the whole Europe. So Danube, Sava, and Tisa, and also in the plains of these rivers, we have floodplain forests, and these floodplain forests are very important ecosystems. And we have the same floodplain forests in Spain and Italy, and in all these countries, floodplain forests are facing the same fate, same issues. So we are definitely connected. So it's not only about Panonian Basin, it's about all the plains with this type in the whole Europe. So that's why I think that this podcast series might be interesting for the whole Europe.
And what did you learn? What have you maybe discovered during the production process of your podcast? Is there anything that caught your attention?
I would say that it has been very difficult to find experts who could talk about this topic, not because of the topic itself, but also because of the current political situation in Serbia.
Yeah.
If we are talking about protests and blocked universities are a huge problem for us now, because it is very difficult to reach academic experts. And we need those experts to be our speakers, right, for the podcast. So let's say that this part is very challenging, and this is what was making our production process a bit slower. I'm still struggling with the last expert for the 5th episode. I mean, we would need to have like the whole script ready and everything, and already in post-production, and I'm still waiting for the, blocked university. So it's like a huge pressure. Also, there is another challenge that we are at the Press Freedom Foundation a small team, and we with limited resources. But we are still confident in our work, and we are giving our best.
Yeah, I'm sure. I have seen you work. We were together in Milan in the Podcast Academy a few weeks ago at the time of recording, and I've been talking to some of you guys, and I know you're putting some serious work on this documentary. And regarding those experts that you cannot even find right now, well, if you bear in mind the context that press freedom is living on in there in Serbia,
Yes.
I think it's pretty much understandable, even though it's not ideal.
Yes. Sorry, can I add something? Like
Yeah.
the biggest challenge in the production process that we are, our speakers are both Hungarian and Serbian, and we do have some experts that they just can't speak in Serbian, but our podcast needs to be in Serbian.
Yeah.
So then we need to have, like, it's a must. And then sometimes we have speakers who are able to speak only in Hungarian. Then we need to do a dubbing. And then our Hungarian partners are having the original. I mean, it's a huge, like, really rompecabezas, right? I mean, it's a headache, really.
Yeah, it can be, but with
Yes.
having some time and working on it, I'm sure you will be able to release the full series, and we will be able to enjoy it once it comes out.
Yes, I believe so.
And what were your goals when you started producing this documentary? And now that you're almost finishing it, what do you think you have achieved?
Well, our goals to raise awareness. I know that this does sound a bit like a cliche, like to raise awareness. And if you check some European Union laws and directives, they go like 40 years ago. Like, it's not a new topic. Like, climate change is not a new topic, but still we need to raise awareness because people are still not understanding this. So local people are not aware of the climate change. They are not thinking about proper solutions. Then we are lacking education and understanding of this issue. Also, we need the state, Serbia, to engage more with projects for mitigation of the climate change and also with implementing proper laws. So laws are here and there. We do have them. Even if Serbia is not part of European Union, but we do have, we implemented European Union directives into our laws, but it's still not properly functioning. We do have a lot of issues. So let's say that this podcast, like the goal of this podcast would be to raise awareness and at least to push a little bit this topic and to approach it to citizens, to listeners.
Yeah, let's hope you can get that goal, because this climate change, I feel like people and governments, and that's even worse, tend to think that this is a problem that will not affect us, or that it will not affect us at least for some generations, and the fact it is that it is already affecting us. So we have to be working on it as soon as possible. And before we end this episode, Mina, I would like to ask you a couple of questions about your listening habits. Now we have been talking about your co-production. Now let's go into what you like to listen when you are preparing your podcast. What's your favorite podcast right now, for example?
Oh, wow. Well, I am documentary photographer. So but I have a favorite podcast, which is BBC. BBC has some really good documentary podcasts, and I am more of a narrative type of person. I like reportage.
Same here.
I am not into that, like, interviewing style of podcast. I don't know. I like to imagine that I am somewhere. Like, I am there, and there is some issue in some local village, in some, I don't know, African country. There are some social, political issues. And then this type of podcasts are like giving me, like, I'm there, you know? I am direct witness of what's happening. And what I like mostly in the this type of podcasts that they are talking about simple people, like everyday life of everyday people and their struggle. So let's say that I would say that BBC. This is my favorite, but I need to say that I am, as a documentary photographer, I am more into looking at the documentary, not listening to it. But I can mention BBC, like something that I really respect.
And when's your favorite moment to listen to podcasts? That time of the day that you feel like, as you said, you need to kind of travel to somewhere and discover that story that you want to listen to.
Well, I might say because, when I have time, and that is usually before sleeping or in the afternoon. But and mostly when it's a winter and outside is not the best weather, because during the summer
there's no other option in winter.
Well, yes, but not in the meaning of, because I am not, for example, a car person. I am not driving car, and then normally people listen to podcasts in the car, for example, and so I'm not that kind of person. So I need to find another moment to listen to podcast. But people say that listening to podcast is something that you can do like while doing something else. For me, that's not the case. I like to focus, because if I am doing something else, I am just listening some noise, but I am not listening. I don't understand the content, and I am not really being there. So for me, listening to podcast is like a full focus activity.
So, Mina Delic, journalist from Press Freedom Foundation, WePod Serbian Partner, thank you for joining me in this episode of Sounds Like Europe. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much, Javier.
And to everyone listening to this interview, please check out the Serbian and Hungarian versions of The Drying Plane if you want to be aware of how climate change can affect the lives of millions of people. You can find the link to both of them in the description of this episode. And for those of you who don't speak neither of these two languages, stay tuned for the release of the English version in a couple months. I've been your host, Javi Caminero, and I will be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Sounds Like Europe. Bye-bye.
Sounds Like Europe, Cross-Border Podcasting is a WePod podcast funded by the Creative Europe programme. Hosted and written by Javi Caminero, sound design by Manu Tomillo, coordinator Alexander Damiano Ricci, executive producer Anna Ribera.